Gwen, I just wanted to let you know that I think for our MEP presentation that we have Julian, Nicole, and Grant all as attendees that need to be promoted to panelists.
Righty, thank you. And let me see who we have. I think I would like to take 3.2 first, the contract for Partnership Health Center with Kirsten Hands, because it looks pretty simple. And I'd like to get that out of the way, and then we can have the rest of the time for the update. So just letting everyone know that. And Lisa, you just let me know when you're ready.
All right, Gwen, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. It's May 11th, 2022, and I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee to order for the Missoula City Council. We are still having virtual meetings. If you want to attend this virtual meeting to provide public comment, I recommend you go to the city website, to the agendas. There we go. Thank you. To the agendas and meetings page, and find this meeting and click on the link. And also you can always leave us a voicemail. The phone number is 406-552-6012. And finally, you can email council to provide public comment. The email address is council@ci.missoula.mt.us. Thank you. And Lisa, could you please do a roll call attendance, please?
I sure can. Stacy Anderson.
Present.
Mirta Becerra.
Present.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
John Contos. Looks like John must be out today. Jordan Hess.
Present.
Gwen Jones.
Present.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage.
Present.
Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Vasica.
Present.
And Heidi West. Looks like Heidi is out today, so that's 10 present and 2 absent.
Thank you, Lisa. We have minutes from the May 4th, 2022 meeting. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved. And I will call for public comment on any items not on the agenda. If you want to provide public comment, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any raised hands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the order here to just handle our one business item first. I think it will go quickly. So I'll call on Kirsten Hands for that. And in the meantime, Lisa, I believe the 3 people who are in the attendees need to be promoted, and you're doing that right now. Thank you. Okay, so Kirsten, if we can go to you for this contract amendment, please.
Thanks for taking me first, Gwen. I'm Kirsten Hands, the Business and Finance Manager for Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. And today I'm bringing forward an updated scope of work, amending the FY22 contract with Partnership Health Center. Partnership Health Center is a community-based organization that receives support from the city each year. For fiscal year 2022, Partnership Health Center is contracted to receive $35,000, originally slated to support their COVID-19 vaccination campaign. But shortly after executing the contract with the city for this original scope of work, they received federal funding targeted at COVID vaccinations. And for this reason, they feel that this support will be better used for other programs related to childcare and pediatric health. So specifically to support the salary of a position that manages these programs. So the amended scope of work is attached to the contract in eScribe. And this again is for FY22. They will be making a new request and new scope of work for FY23. The motion for today's item is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the amended contract with Partnership Health Center for services per the attached scope of work in the amount of $35,000.
Thank you, Kirsten. Are there any questions regarding this item? Ms. Cheryl?
I don't have any questions. I'm glad that they found federal funding, and I'm happy to support child care, pediatric, uh, anything around pediatric health, I think is really important. And Partnership Health is a great partner in this community and a critical resource for a lot of people. So I'm happy to make the recommended motion.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. I will call for public comment. We have no one in the attendee room. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please, Lisa.
All right. Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Mirta Becerra,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
and Sandra Vasica.
Yes.
So that's unanimous for all in attendance. That's 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you so much. That can go onto the consent agenda, and that leaves the rest of our time, 35 minutes, for a Missoula Economic Partnership update. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Cheryl to introduce. She's the referring counselor. She's also the council liaison to the Missoula Economic Partnership. Amber, if you want to introduce this item and our presenters today.
Yeah, thanks. This is an informational item only. We have not had the Missoula Economic Partnership in front of us for a long time. And so I think it's important to find out what they're up to and how they are playing an important role in the pre and now post COVID world that we live in. And I'm not sure exactly how they want to go through this, but I'm going to turn it over to Grant Keir, who is their executive director, and just let them all tell us what they will.
Thank you,
Good morning,
Amber.
Grant.
Good morning. Thank you so much to all of you for having us today. It has been a while since we've had a chance to give you an update on our work. I don't know, was it 2 years or 2 decades? It feels like it's been a long time, but it was definitely pre-COVID. I guess what I'd like to do is start by sharing my screen, and I'll kind of walk through what we're going to cover today. While I'm doing that, I just want to acknowledge for those of you who have been on the council for some time. I know it's been a really hard couple of years, so thank you for your work and all you've done for the community to get through everything that we've been through in the last couple of years. And for those of you who are new to the council, congratulations on your electoral success and thanks for being willing to serve Missoula. Can you see my screen right now, Amber? Just a thumbs up. Yeah, great.
Yep,
Okay.
looks good.
So what I want to do to kind of provide some context, recognizing that some of you are new to council and maybe not very familiar with our work, we'll cover a little bit of background and kind of who we are as an organization, how we were founded, and some of our more recent activities leading up to and during COVID. COVID was a period when we went through a pretty extensive rethink about what we were trying to accomplish as an organization and what we should be thinking about as a community in terms of a healthy economy. So we'll talk about that planning process and the plans that came out of that. And then I'm going to turn it over to 2 of our staff here today, Julie Lacey, our Economic Development Director, and Nicole Rush, our Business Initiatives Director, to talk a little bit more about specifics of current programmatic work and some of the stuff that we see on the horizon. We have been asked, so our plan here is to provide enough information to give you some context. I just want to say our door is always open and we're happy to visit with you. So this is really meant to be pretty broad strokes about things we're doing. Some of this stuff has been years in the works and we're going to cover in just a few minutes. So we invite any follow-up conversations or interest. We'd love to talk and we're happy to send along more information. And we're trying to create enough time for you to have some opportunities for some Q&A here at the end. So this is the mission of the Missoula Economic Partnership: to expand prosperity and improve quality of life by engaging in strategic business development, creating pathways for people to realize their potential, and fostering the culture of diversity and innovation. And I just want to stress that I think you'll see throughout our presentation several themes here. Really a focus on how we support businesses, how we support people, and the role we can play in making sure that both of them have a good environment in which to succeed. The organization was founded in 2010, so compared to many nonprofits in Missoula, it's not very old. It was formed in response to the economic collapse of 2007 and 2008. For those of you who have been around that long, you will remember that was when we saw things like the Smurfit Stone Mill shutting down. We saw Macy's leaving downtown Missoula, a huge collapse and depressed use of commercial and retail spaces downtown. And to some extent, for a brief period of time, even sort of reduction in home values in our community. It was a time when we had high unemployment and there was a great deal of uncertainty about what the future of Missoula's economy would look like. So the mayor, commissioners, and some business leaders in the community, including our hospitals and other large employers, came together and said, we really need to do a better job of building a strategy and being active about making sure that we're building an economy we want to see for the future. Really, for that first decade, the emphasis of the organization was on following 2007 all the way up to, I would say, 2017 or 18 when I joined. The heavy emphasis was really on job creation. How do we create more high-paying jobs in the community that are in industries that are more sustainable? It was really around 2018 and 19 that we felt like we had made great strides in that. We were seeing some pretty good progress in average prevailing wage increases. And we really started to see some of the impacts of that success manifest in the form of new challenges. And before COVID, we were just starting to appreciate the significance of reduced workforce. We were seeing close to record unemployment and starting to appreciate that a housing shortage and high housing prices were actually starting to accelerate at a faster rate than we could realistically expect wages to increase. So we started to think about housing as an issue even before COVID. COVID hit, and frankly, it was really a complete shift in the organizational focus. We were asked by the county to take the lead role in facilitating our, Missoula County Economic Relief and Recovery Task Force. So we were actually a part of the formal emergency response structure. And then we also participated in weekly meetings and calls with the leadership of the community around sort of where the status was of the virus, of the community, of the schools, of the economy. Our role specifically was really coordinating just over 30 partners on weekly calls to understand what was happening to our businesses locally, what kind of impacts they were experiencing, how to provide information and resources to them as quickly as possible to address those impacts, and to some extent being a liaison between the health department and the business community to ensure that we created the best and open line of communication to manage impacts of various closures and information so that people could manage the process as quickly as possible and get access to relief and support as effectively as possible. One of the key points we focused on there was recognizing that a lot of the big incentives and support programs heavily emphasized the need for pretty talented teams of bookkeepers, accountants, and lawyers to be able to be prepared for some of those processes. So we really focused on how to build teams within the community that could support smaller businesses that didn't have that kind of infrastructure to kind of level the playing field and make sure that everybody had access to the support they needed to get through, or the support available at least, if not what they needed to get through through COVID. Of course, like so many people now appreciate, we started to see some pretty rapid trends as we recovered from the first real dip in our economy. And we saw the wave of people who seemed able, willing, and interested in coming here and bringing their remote work with them. And we saw that huge shift in housing markets, shifts in employment and unemployment that were happening at a pretty big scale. And we realized that as we were facing COVID and not knowing what the long-term impacts would be, it was really incumbent upon us to bring the community together as we saw a light at the end of the tunnel and think about how we assessed the impacts of COVID and how we created a strategy, a long-term strategy to build an economy coming out of COVID that would have the best likelihood of success at being the vision of the community we wanted to create in the future. And so as we were coming out of COVID, organizationally, we decided to couple two major planning processes. One was to develop for the first time in almost a decade, a comprehensive economic development strategy for Missoula County. And so a comprehensive economic development strategy is a formal document that is set out and defined by the Economic Development Administration, the United States EDA. And it has certain characteristics that need to be included and a certain amount of process that needs to be followed in order to qualify as a document. And we wanted to create this document for two reasons. One, as a tool to pull the community together and have conversations around what was happening and where we wanted to go. And two, to formally create a document that would allow our community to have access to EDA funding, knowing that a lot of funding was coming out of the federal administration in response to COVID, that we would not otherwise have access to if we hadn't created the plan. And then our goal as an organization, knowing that we operate on these 5-year cycles, was to use parts of this comprehensive economic development strategy to develop our new strategic plan that would really define what our programs would look like and the services we would provide in Missoula going forward as a response to this larger community vision of the economy. So I'm going to talk really briefly about the comprehensive economic development strategy, and then I'll move into some specifics in our strategic plan. This is more of an orientation than a detailed summary of the documents. So I'm happy to, they're available on our website. We're also happy to email them out or visit with you individually about them if you have a specific interest. But in general, for the comprehensive economic development strategy, we pulled together a steering committee that included leaders from multiple sectors in the business community, the public sector, the private sector, university, members of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes Economic Development Team, large employers, small employers, single moms with small businesses. We really worked hard with an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that the folks who would not typically be at the table to set out a vision for our economy had access to this process and could come together and be a part of it. Each of these people then helped us define a process and a vision for how we would move forward. They selected a process, and this is that sort of like recurring theme I talked about earlier, where we really tried to break a view of our economy into how are people and our economy impacting each other? How is this place impact our economy, and how are businesses impacted by our economy and impacting our economy? And to really focus in those three areas in the way that we framed and thought about the work and the place going forward. We then created a vision. The steering committee established a vision that they adopted, which was that what we were working toward as a regional economy that was equitable, inclusive, and resilient, and offered every resident a path to prosperity for a lifetime. And then with that vision and that framework, we held a series of workshops over a course of a year in which that group helped invite stakeholders to the table via a series of, I think, 8 or 9 community workshops and listening sessions where we really dug into specific topics. And then what came out of that was a set of goals and strategies for each of those areas of our economy: people, businesses, and place, that looked at what are the things that are facing people, what are the things that are facing businesses, and what are the challenges facing us in terms of how we invest in our overall infrastructure, and how do we collectively bring our goals and strategies together to leverage each other's efforts and try to move and advance those goals as quickly as possible. So that document has a long list. I think it's a 46-page document. The entire second half is well-defined goals and strategies and activities that we can do as a community. All those can be done and are being done by the city, by the county, by individual businesses, by other nonprofits. We then took the parts of that where we said there's not another clear lead, and we feel it's appropriate for MEP to take the lead. And we established our strategic plan. And so an example that I will give you is that, in our strategic plan, we define why it's important for us to help grow strong businesses in our community. And we talk about the ways that MEP is going to take on this list of goals and strategies that come out of that SEDS document. And we did the same thing for supporting people and supporting place. And then we go further down into our document to say, if we're going to support business and we're going to achieve those goals, what are how do we need to be organized programmatically, and what are the specific actions we need to take over the course of the next 5 years to make sure that we're advancing those goals in a very strategic and thoughtful and efficient way. And so our document then goes into the programmatic work. How have we either proven that we can be successful in this program effort in the past? What is this going to look like in the future? And what are the specific metrics and deliverables that we can do going forward to show that we're making progress towards these things? So we're working on our own work, and then we're going to continue to coordinate that broader community conversation around how we're doing towards the SEDS process. And I'm going to turn it over now to Julie Lacey to dive into even more specifics about what those activities look like on the ground and the kinds of things we have been doing or are doing now or will be doing in the future. So I will stop sharing my screen, and Julie, I'll turn it over to you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Grant. Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Lacey. I'm the Director of Economic Development here at MEP. And let me take a moment here. How's that? Let's
You know,
see.
if you can make your original slide bigger, we're seeing all of your different slides on there.
Is it full screen now?
No. The wording is big so we can see it, but it's you know, just go ahead if you're not able to do it unless.
Is that better?
Yep,
Great.
that's it. You got it. There you go.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So as Grant mentioned, we have specific programmatic efforts, and one of them that came out of the SEDS process in our strategic plan is around land development. So we know that Missoula's economic success is truly dependent on housing, and that is a critical need for our community right now, both in terms of affordability and availability for employers, for individuals, all around. And we are in a unique position with the ability to work closely with public and private partners to support development of housing and other commercial development to grow Missoula and remain resilient. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of where we've come in this land development program and then where we're going in the specific work that we're doing. So where this came from and we wanted to leverage our past success was around the opportunity zone. So when the opportunity zone was designated in Missoula, MEP took a lead on really understanding this tool. We saw that it overlapped the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District and thought of Scott Street specifically in mind. So we convened partners to learn how to use the opportunity zone, what it actually meant and could afford our community, and then toured other communities to see what they were doing, how they were using the tool, and learn best practices when it came to multi-use project, multi-purpose projects, and just to understand what other communities are doing. And out of that, we were able to meet impact investor partners, good ideas on combining affordable housing in a mixed use development. We brought that back, shared it with folks in the public and private sector. And out of that, what launched the Scott Street project that's happening right now at Rivera. So we were able to sort of step away from that once the letters of intent got rolling, but we do continue to work with commercial development partners and the city for their priorities at the site. So what that looks like is I've talked to entrepreneurs who are looking at the commercial space with the housing, and then talking to Public Works about their vision longer term on the site and how to combine in the area so that everyone's priorities are being met. Currently, these are the efforts we're working on right now. So this convening stakeholders to accelerate housing and commercial development. How this came to be is that we heard from developers, architects, engineers, folks at the city and the county about getting projects from start to finish, whether it's land use and acquisition to selling the home. So this, what we call the development life cycle. And we understand that there are pinch points throughout that process, whether it's zoning, whether it's regulation, whether it's the market or supply side issues. So after talking to folks in all areas, we decided to bring about 25 people together and convene a series of facilitated meetings to really address issues, develop understanding, and come up with some clear goals on what we can work on to increase the efficiency and the amount of homes that we're delivering right now. We understand there's a lot of places where things can be modified, and what is the lowest hanging fruit to be able to expedite homes to market and really develop what our community needs in terms of housing. We've completed 3 of those meetings, and the 4th one is set for June. Out of that, we'll have some specific outcomes. This 4th meeting is really going to design some more specific outcomes, whether that's public messaging or sentiment around housing, some specific efforts around the state regulatory issue in subdivision, or just, mutual understanding at the local level. These last 2 bullets, we're really partnering with the city, and this looks at how to market some city-owned projects to advance their development goals. That might look like the Sleepy Inn or the Payne Block, and really taking what we did at the Scott Street site and leveraging that forward to replicate some good models of how we work in public-private partnership to develop sites that align with community goals and what the community needs. And then looking at this business strategic relocation. So we understand that in certain parts of Missoula, there are businesses that may not be as well suited for their current location than they have been in the past. And perhaps that current location could be better used for a city or community goal around housing or commercial development. So again, in partnership with the city, we're looking at ways to support the businesses and see what their needs are to either move to another location or work to facilitate a redevelopment on the site that can align with community goals. What we're looking at in the future, and then I'm going to pass it over to Nicole, this idea of an incubator space. So I know you've probably heard about it in other communities, and given our access to EDA funding, there are many opportunities for incubator grants and programs. And so we're looking at a specific incubator that could be used for manufacturing and talking to groups about what that would look like and what the site and specific needs are. We're also looking at expanding local funding to support redevelopment within the county. The bipartisan infrastructure law has allowed for an increased amount of brownfields funds that are available to communities. And so we are examining whether or not MEP should play a role in facilitating brownfields grants, both for planning for businesses, site redevelopment, or to support the other city and county brownfields programs that exist. And then finally, we're working on infrastructure, specifically at the Y. The county and Emily Brock through the TED is looking at an infrastructure plan in the Y. We know there's strong commercial and housing development happening out there. So we're working with them to align and see what their needs are to really look holistically at the infrastructure there to support housing and commercial development. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicole Rush. I'm MEP's Business Initiatives Director. I manage our talent development program. I also am our in-house grant writer, so I'm going to cover talent development and some of our grant programs today. Workforce has become a more pressing issue post-COVID, or not post-COVID, but as COVID developed. And so we have ramped up our efforts in talent development over the last couple of years. At the heart of our talent development program, which involves a variety of different initiatives and activities, it's about bringing together stakeholders from the private sector, our educational institutions, and our workforce development organizations, such as the Missoula Job Service, and work on activities that raise awareness of what careers are in demand now and in the future, and help businesses with access resources that help them attract and retain great talent. So next slide. Julie?
Yep, hold on. I don't know why my mouse is stuck. Hey, I'm coming. Oh.
And the
Oh,
theme of the pandemic, technical difficulties, no worries. Oh,
Great.
there you go.
Okay, wait. Oh. Is that it?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Oh,
Okay.
go back.
Mouse issue.
So anyway, in the past, what our talent development program has looked like is, first of all, we have a big responsibility to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on with the economy and the local labor market. So we have authored 2 different state of the workforce studies. The most recent one came out in 2021 and was authored by Bryce Ward, a local economist, and you are welcome to access that report and read it on our website. A lot of the data in it helped inform our SEDS planning process. We also write grants at MEP, specifically job creation grants that help businesses who are creating high-paying jobs, which are jobs that are paying over about $20 an hour on average. It provides grant funding for them to help with their expansion. So we write those grants. We also have done a few different planning processes. Most recently, we brought together the university and representatives from the local business community, as well as the city, to look at the process by which businesses engage with the university to create internship programs, and how and how effective those programs are, both for the students that participate in them and for the businesses in terms of creating a recruiting pipeline from the university. So we did a series of design labs around those topics last year that resulted in some great programmatic recommendations that the university is working on implementing. One of the results of that was that they kind of redesigned their website to help steer businesses to the right area when they're looking at creating an internship or attending a career fair and stuff like that. More recently, like in the last few months, in 2022, we launched a series of webinars that look at resources available for recruitment to businesses. So the first one focused on our state grant resources, especially the new ones for training that they've rolled out through the American Rescue Plan Act funding. Most recently, we did a webinar in April that was all about partnering with kind of touching on some of the same topics that design lab looked at, but more broadly focused on raising awareness of all the different opportunities for recruiting talent through the university and Missoula College. We just wrapped up, or are in the process of wrapping up, a feasibility study that looked at the cost of establishing a college promise program here in Missoula that would guarantee free 2-year college tuition at Missoula College to every high school graduate in the county. So that's a planning process that involved the university, Missoula College, the city, and the county. So we're just finalizing on that process. We've continued to write job creation grants, which I'm going to go into a little bit on the next slide. If we can go there. Great. Nope, go back. Okay. So we've continued to write job creation grants. I'm not going to go through this report line by line, but we've had about 600,000 in under management over the last year, and a good mix of large and small companies working to create good paying jobs. We also have a planning grant program under management that supports both business planning and community planning efforts. So last fall, we supported the BID in the West Broadway Corridor master planning process, currently supporting All Nations Health Center as they look at architectural planning for the new facility they want to build. And then a variety of business expansion projects that mostly look at facilities expansion, but can also look at commercialization planning. And in the case of one business for Ewer, they want to bring their manufacturing in-house in Missoula. So we're helping them with a feasibility study for that. And next slide. So looking ahead to what we're working on in the future, we're going to continue kind of all of these efforts as they evolve. I have more ideas for our webinar series for the rest of the year. Next week at our a Big Sky Business Insight Summit, we're launching an initiative in partnership with 0 to 5 called Family Forward Missoula that provides businesses with resources on how to enact policies that support working families, everything from paid leave all the way up to and including on-site childcare. Next fall, I'm hoping in partnership with the High Tech Alliance to hold a career pathways event that looks at jobs that are in demand locally in Missoula for students who really want to stay here and work. And as Grant and Julie both mentioned, part of the reason we did the SEDS was to take advantage of future grant opportunities from the EDA. So we'll continue to look for those opportunities and support our local government partners in new application processes. We just actually finished supporting the city in their application to the EDA that supports infrastructure expansion at Karis Park around river access. And so we helped with the economic impact statement that talks about how that project will support hospitality and tourism sectors. So we'll do more types of those projects as they become available. And with that, I think we're done. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share our work with you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Great presentation, just so much information and so much you guys are doing. Let's go to questions. Amber, you have your hand raised.
I do, and I'd like to make a couple points, and I don't know if I really have a question, but I really appreciate you all being here and your behind the scenes and not behind the scenes work, specifically on housing, on workforce development, but all of it. I think it's really important, and I think it's really important that council understands how much is being done by this organization. So, economic development needs to be intentional, and I think your organization is bringing that to Missoula. And so I'm thankful that that's being done, because it doesn't just happen without that. I just wanted to, I guess, also make a point back to what Grant was talking about earlier, and say the MEP, which it may not come to mind, is an important partner in the emergency response structure around COVID. They really were for us at the health department. And so being part of the health board and understanding, as we were, trying to manage this pandemic, and back when we could make policies around managing COVID, but that did happen. And that just kind of being the voice for businesses and being thoughtful about some of those policies that we made and communicating those with us was really critical. So thank you for, as an organization, for understanding how important your role in that needed to be and what it ended up being. So it always, being involved in health related policy seems a little bit funny maybe for an economic development, but it was really critical in the pandemic. So I don't think I'm on the board, so I don't think I have any questions, and I don't want to take up the time with my questions because I can ask them later. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Amber. And yeah, my one comment actually dovetails with what you were just saying, and that was that back in the first phase of the pandemic, I think MEP was absolutely critical in getting the loans out, the federal dollar loans, to small businesses, because they were the nexus. They were here creating that infrastructure and communication. And so Missoula did very, very well in getting those dollars to those small businesses. And I think although there was a lot of fallout from the pandemic, we would have seen a lot more businesses go down, but for MEP. So thank you for that. Okay, Mike Nugent, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo Councilwoman Cheryl's comments and say that I think that I really appreciate that the work that MEP is doing right now, and I appreciate the maybe slight shift into being more proactive on helping solve some of our community conversations, or help facilitate maybe some of our community conversations around housing and building and the like. And I think that that's a really important role for an organization such as MEP to play, because they're kind of uniquely positioned as partners with both private sector and public sector to play that role. And I think it's important. And I would just kind of be remiss not to note that organizations such as MEP, what they mean to a community really ebbs and flows depending on the economy and what's needed. And I really have appreciated the foresight of the MEP board to kind of be nimble and jump on that. So thanks so much.
Thanks. And Jordan Hess.
Thanks. I agree with all the previous comments and appreciate your presentation and your work. And I just wanted to highlight the vision statement for economic development in the Missoula area. That is a really unconventional mission or vision statement for an economic development organization. And I think it speaks to the character of our community. And I think it speaks to the innovative nature of your work. And so I appreciate that. Thanks for that.
Thank you. We have 1 more minute. Oh, wait, we have more questions. Okay, Jennifer.
We haven't even had a question, but thanks.
You're right. Jennifer, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and also a little known fact is that Nicole Rush and I spent a solid 2 years working together at the University of Montana in a dorm room, because that's how they used to house offices at the university. But I did have a question, actually, Nicole. I was wondering about, I know we saw a lot of these federal funds come in during the pandemic. I'm wondering if there are any like permanent new funding opportunities that you see on the horizon as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to say right now what will become permanent, but I think there are certain, at both the state level through the ARPA Act, there are definitely some programs that while they're not permanent, they will be around for the next few years that really support education and training and workforce development. So that's really exciting. And I know that federally, on the EDA level, yeah, a lot of that funding was like COVID specific, but it will, it'll have a ripple effect for at least the next 5 years or so. EDA received a huge amount of funding during the pandemic that they continue to disperse. So we are really optimistic actually about, the level of federal and state investment in these key issues.
Thank you. It was good to see you.
Thanks. We are technically over time. I'll take one more question. Well, Mirta, did you want to ask one more question? No? All right. Stacy.
Okay, thanks so much. I just wanted to quickly, you had talked about, your definition of good paying or living wage jobs, and at about $20 an hour, which works out to be about $40,000 a year if that $20 an hour is a full-time position. And I just wonder, how often are you recalibrating that number given the, the soaring cost of housing, as well as just overall economic goods and that we're seeing, and I just worry that that number is quickly out of date in terms of what it actually you need to make to actually live here, and so I wanted to know how often you look at that.
Quick answer, if I may, Nicole, is that number is, so we get an average wage for the county that's established every January by the state, and they have one specific wage that they create for our county. That's the threshold over which you have to pay in order to qualify for the grants that we offer some of the businesses. And so that's one thing that we use as a metric. We obviously have a database that lets us understand what sort of median wages on a real-time basis, but real-time in understanding wages is usually a 6 month to 1 year lag. Just know that for the way data is collected nationally. And I mean, for us to argue that $20 an hour is I don't know, did we use the word living wage? I don't think we use the word living wage. I don't think we do use the word living wage, and you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things I talked about is the fact that housing prices are accelerating so much faster than wages can realistically keep pace, that we know we're, pre-COVID, I would have said housing was really important, but not a crisis. Housing is now a crisis, and we know it is, and we're doing everything we can to figure out what role we can play in changing that. But there's no question that these average wages and even good paying wages are not enough to keep pace with the current cost of putting a dwelling over your head.
Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you. Great last question. We're going to hit that one. Hey, thank you everyone so much for coming. We ran a little bit over, but great presentation. I appreciate it. Thanks, MEP.
Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Have a good day.
We are adjourned.